We don't feel like we can really be ourselves. We have to pretend to be something or hide aspects of who we are. You were hurt by other men physically, emotionally. You were the butt of all jokes. You were bullied by men. Men have breakups and they have nobody, and they spiral into depression, anxiety, and loneliness. This really narrowed, rigid set of rules brutally enforced by all men. Be strong, not weak. Don't show any emotion. They would just mock me, and everything would be banter and everything would be a joke. Other men have belittled you. You don't grow by sitting on your sofa, munching crisps and watching porn. You grow by facing some of the difficult things, the shadow aspects of your life. And if this sounds like something you want to start your year off, then this is for you. So, men and community. Why we need community as men. It's a really, really interesting topic, right? Because I think more and more in this day and age, more and more communities are popping up for men. And I think as men, we often assume that these places are going to be like the spaces that have hurt us before, right? Maybe you played some sport. Maybe you didn't play sport. Maybe you're just at school, right? And you felt ostracized, or you felt you were shunned. You were hurt by other men physically, emotionally. You were the butt of all jokes. You were bullied by men, boys or men, right? So you feel that often, right, being in community, being in spaces with other men doesn't feel 100% comfortable. You don't feel you can really be yourself. You can open up, you can share, you can be honest, you can be open. To some degree, there's this feeling you have of feeling unsafe, right? And unsafe doesn't necessarily mean that you don't feel you don't feel physically safe, right? That could be an aspect of it for men. We don't feel physically safe with other men, but it's also this kind of emotional safety and psychological safety, right? Where we don't feel like we can really be ourselves. We have to pretend to be something or hide aspects of who we are in the company of men, because that's what we've been grown up and that's what we're used to, right? I definitely had this thing. I didn't really trust men. I didn't think they would really listen to me and they would just mock me, and everything would be banter and everything would be a joke, and you couldn't really show up seriously. And women was a safe place for me. I can talk to women, be open, be honest, be vulnerable, and they would listen and so forth. And what I've learned over the last 10 years, especially in the last 5 years with some of the communities of men that I've been involved with through my work, is that actually these are really important places for us as men. Because you can go back through the ages, you hear these kind of stories that as men, we would sit around campfires and tell stories and talk about how our day's been and the troubles that we've had with, tribal leaders and so forth. And I've actually witnessed this, right? I was in Ethiopia a few years ago, probably actually going on 7-8 years ago. And I stayed with this tribe for a couple of days. And in the evening, the men sat around the fire. So typical, right? Sat around the fire and they talked. And there was like the kind of elders, 3 or 4 of them sitting on one side of the kind of circle. And the other men would talk about, and obviously it was in the language I couldn't understand, so I was going through a translator. They would bring problems to these older men and be like, this is something I'm dealing with, or I'm worried about my wife, or I'm worried about my children, or this is going on for me, and so forth. And they would seek advice, and they would get co-opinions from other people and reflections, right? And I saw this in front of me. And this is something that we don't really get anymore as men, because we don't do it in group, because we don't know that many good men. So many men I talk to are like, I can't be open with my friends. I can't be vulnerable with my friends. I can't talk about deep stuff with them. I can't talk about the things that are really important, my past, my childhood, like how that's shaping me, the future I want, my vision, and so forth. They can't do that. Right. And I say this because I've run groups of men for the last 5 years, and men always say this at some point. They're like, wow, I didn't know I needed this group of men. Maybe they're in one of my group programs, or they're in my community. Right. And they're like, one of the guys in the community actually did a session last week. And he was like, this is the group I didn't realize I needed. Because my friends, many of his friends had moved out of London, and he's like, I didn't know I needed a group of men who I could be really honest with and open with and share what's going on in my life and get really good reflection and feedback, but also motivation and congratulations and a place to kind of celebrate wins. So why is it so important for us as men to have these things in our life, to have a group of men around us that we can share openly and honestly? Number one reason is, and I've added this one in, I always do this, and I had things in, the man box. We all grew up in a society and culture that is seeped in the man box, in man box culture. For those of you that haven't heard about man box culture, what it really is is this really narrowed, rigid set of rules of how to be a man, how to be an acceptable man in today's society. There's some of the rules are, and I don't know them off by heart because there's a number of them, is like, be strong, not weak. Don't show any emotion, especially don't cry. Be dominant, right? Especially over women. Don't talk about anything deep and meaningful. Talk about superficial stuff. Cars, banter, sport. What's some other things in there? Be straight, not gay. That's another one that's in there as well, right? You get the picture, right? You get the picture with the man box. And the thing with these rules is they are brutally enforced by all men to some degree. You've maybe not had an experience that I have. As you can see, I've got this slightly flamboyant tie-dye cardigan on, right? Where you've worn something and other men have belittled you for wearing it. Maybe you wore a shirt that had some pink in it or was floral or something like that, and people called you gay or a poof or a woman of some type, right? Because that's one of the other man box rules is never be a girl. Don't be feminine in any way, right? That's the kind of central piece. So what we do to each other is we banter and bully each other whenever we step outside of one of these rules. So what's happened for a lot of us men is this is what we've experienced being with men. So this is our experience of being with men, that it's actually not very nice and we don't enjoy it. We don't feel good around it. So we try and avoid it. So one of the main reasons I think for us to actually create communities and be in communities of men is to counteract those rules, to redesign masculinity and the rules of being men together in a way that is different. There's a way that is not through bullying and banter, but is through acceptance, right? Calling forward, right? Growth, all these sorts of things. Because otherwise we're going to just keep having these same experiences with the wrong type of men, because it's hard to find a good group of men that you can spend time with, you can hang out with and you can talk to, right? And you can grow together, right? And learn and take on skills together, right? Because otherwise we never counteract this kind of man box piece, right? And this is something I do inside my Authentic Man community. Like, there's no rules of how you have to be, right? There's a lot of stuff, agreements we have around like listening to each other, being curious about other people, like knowing that you can bring stuff to the group, right? Emotional content, relationship issues and so forth. And you will be heard. You'll be listened to, right? No one's going to make fun of you. No one's going to laugh at your problems. People are actually going to be like, oh shit, I've got that. I've had that problem too, right? Do you need some help? Would you like a call, right? And contrast that with your experience maybe of your own friends, right? That if you brought an issue you have maybe with your sex life, do they listen or do they make it a joke within, 2 sentences, right? Does someone belittle you or does it get sidelined, or it's like people just say it's not a big deal and everyone pretends like that's never happened to them, right? And this is the sort of thing we have to counteract. Otherwise, we never grow, right? We never move through the pain and turn that pain into something that's like gold, right? Into our own learning. And this is one of the issues you see with a lot of men who experience. Number 2, reasons why communities are so powerful for men. We have this pandemic of loneliness in the world. And it particularly affects everybody. It does affect women as well. The statistics around women are slightly better than men, but it's affecting everybody. We live in a lonely world now. We live in a world where we're more connected than ever, but we are lonelier than ever as human beings, right? And communities stop us feeling isolated and alone. The research has shown when men have communities, they feel less isolated. They have less emotional struggles, right? They have places to go to share them. They feel less stigma about their feelings and emotions, right? Because ultimately what happens is it helps, as men, it helps our psychological well-being, which there's a knock-on effect to our physical well-being when we have stronger social support networks, right? Women have better social support networks. So it's why when women have breakups, right, they go to friends and they talk to somebody, right? Men have breakups and they have nobody and they spiral into depression, anxiety and loneliness and destroys their confidence, right? It's a big difference. There's an importance in this, right? The statistics show this. It's there's a lot of research around this about how as when we feel less isolated, it counteracts some of the very negative aspects of masculinity. And I see this myself with the men that are, again, in the community. One of the things they say often is just like, wow, this is a place where I can share my inner world and just feel accepted and cared for. Like, I love the consistency of the group. Like, everyone shows up. We're there for each other on WhatsApp. We meet in person and we do things together, right? Because a lot of groups, right, which I love, I've done men's circles for companies and so forth, as you know, they only meet online. But inside our community, we meet every quarter in person. And people organize stuff off their own back as well, right? Because quite a few of the guys are in London, so they meet up. You know, they went sauna and cold plunge recently, right? We need this because otherwise we feel lonely, right? Many men feel lonely. Many men only have, like, I think it's reported, a third of men in London don't have someone they could call a best friend, don't have someone they can call up when something's gone wrong. And right now I've got 12 men in the community, and if something's going wrong in their life, they need help with something, they just drop a message into WhatsApp and go, hey man, I'm struggling. Or hey man, this thing's happened to me. I've broken up with my partner, or I'm about to break up with my partner, which is a very real thing that happened to a man in the group. He was like, my relationship is falling apart and I'm not sure what to do. Within an hour, he had people being like, hey, let's have a conversation, let's have a chat, like, what's going on, how can we help you? How many of you have friends in your life that will do that, will drop what's going on and actually listen to you? Yeah, not be scared to listen, not be scared to be there, but actually emotionally mature men to be there for you. It's a very, very rare thing, right? Number 3 of why communities are so powerful and important for men. As men, we often don't feel like we belong, is one thing, right? And 2, we often feel like the problems we're having are only us that are experiencing them, and there's something wrong with us because we're experiencing them. Yeah, this is a very common thing I get in my coaching, one-to-one, and inside the groups I work with as well. Men are like, I've got this problem. I don't know what to do. And I think I'm the only, I feel really shameful for it. I feel something wrong with me. And obviously I've spoken to hundreds of men in the last few years, hundreds. I'm verging on like 400 plus men I've coached in the last few years. And I'll go, oh yeah, this is really common. And they look at me and they go, what? I'm like, yeah, it's really common. You know, really common. For instance, a good example, I've been talking to quite a few men over the last year about something what I'm kind of coining kind of sexual intimacy resistance. This is men who are kind of in a relationship and they feel a level of resistance around having sex with their partners. They often misdiagnose it as low libido, or they're not attracted to their partner, but what's underneath is a little bit of resistance. And I'm going to do a podcast episode about that. You might find that not too long after this one. And when they talk to me about it, instantly there's some shame lifted. But here's the thing, when we're in a group, right, we're in a group, especially when the group is structured and facilitated for growth, openness, and connection, right? In the same way that my community is. We speak about what's going on in our lives. Maybe there's some struggles with dating, like I went on a date and I got dumped, or I went on a date and it didn't go well, or I'm seeing this woman and it's like really hot and cold, I'm not really sure what to do. When you have 10 people listening to you say that, yeah, and they reflect back to you and go, oh man, I've had that too. That happens to me all the time. It's really frustrating, isn't it? Suddenly, that part of you that feels shame because it's only you and there's something wrong with you and you're broken because you're experiencing this is met with acceptance, but also met with a comrade. Yeah, to take into like, what's it called? Communist terms, right? You're met with a person who is just like you, who's on your level, right? And this reduces shame. It makes you feel safer that you can express yourself and open up. It creates this sense of empathy. You're like me. I can feel what you feel, right? And this sense of belonging and the not being so alone with the problems we have. Because one of the big things I see of men is we have these problems. We feel alone and we isolate ourselves more because we're like, oh, I'm broken. No one's going to want to be friends with me, right? So I'm not going to reply to people's messages and so forth. And we might do that consciously and we might do it very unconsciously as well. But when you are in a group, when you belong to something where the people talk, meet up, talk about topics that are, you know, outside the norm, right? We do talk about football sometimes, but very rarely, to be honest. And it usually only lasts a couple of minutes. We're talking about money. Yeah. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about sex and intimacy. I'm just thinking about some of the sessions we've had recently inside the community, right? To give you an example, we had a session where we talked about the patriarchy and the lives of women and what it's like to be a woman in the world, and how those things also impact men. We've talked about the negativity in the world around men and how that impacts us as men and what we can do to change that. We regularly talk about aspects of dating and relationships, sex and intimacy. We had a wonderful woman come into a session around touch and how you can really deliver and create pleasure for your partner, the woman you're sleeping with, through touch. How often do you have these sorts of conversations with your friends? You don't. This is the thing, men, we don't have these conversations, so we don't learn. We don't learn how to be better with our finances and money. We don't learn how to be better lovers because we don't have actual conversations. We might pick up a book about it and you can do some learning, but there's also some really important learning where you can have a feedback mechanism. You can ask someone, you can talk to a facilitator like me, or you can be in a group of men and you can talk about what's going on for you, right? And we don't get that because we have a problem and we isolate ourselves. We hide our problems from the world. It's a really important thing there, right? And this is, again, something that a lot of the men have really expressed, is this sense of just acceptance, like not feeling shame for who they are, you know, being supported, having a place to belong, like this general sense that keeps coming up from the men in my group is this like, oh yeah, we're all so similar. You know, we're all very much the same. The things we're struggling with, the things we're experiencing, right? Actually, is not so different from how I thought it was, right? So men are starting to learn that this idea that they're alone in their problems starts to disappear because they are consistently sharing what's going on in their lives. And suddenly it's easier for them to share. It's easier for them to open up when they're dating. It's easier for them to be more resilient when they're dating, right? Or maybe it's better if something that men do a lot is they bring the stuff to the group that they may not bring to their partner straight away. So it's like you're struggling with something, right? This is another really powerful aspect of a men's group or a men's community, is often when we're in a relationship with a woman, we will just bring all our problems to her, right? Because we've learned it's safe to talk to women because we had our mothers, we had our ex-girlfriends and women in general, blah, 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 right? Not safe, not for everybody, but it's very, very common this. So when we have a problem, and maybe it's about our partner, we don't know what to do because we've got no one to talk to, right? So this is where the community becomes really useful. You come to me and go, hey, I've got this thing going on. It doesn't have to be a problem. It could be a challenge, something you're thinking about doing or not doing. And you can come to a group of men or one man, right? And be like, hey, man, I've been thinking this thing, or hey, dudes, I've been thinking this thing. And you can get some reflection and feedback. So it helps you refine your own ideas and thoughts. It gives you some new ideas and thoughts, right? From outside of you, outside of your own mind that swirls around often. And then you can go back to your partner and go, hey, this thing's been happening for me. This is what I've been thinking. And this is what I think we need to do or I need to do. There's no using your partner as your therapist because you've done that work over here, right? And you'll just come in with a solution and clarity, right? And this is something we often struggle with in a relationship with our partners. Number 4, right? I've added another one in now because I think this is something that's really important, especially as we're getting into the new year. Accountability. As men, we will often shirk accountability. We'll shirk being held accountable by other people. We will push away from being held accountable for our goals, things that are meaningful, the place we want to get to, because it's uncomfortable. And also accountability can also raise that feeling of potential failure. And I know this well because if someone's going to hold me accountable to me making £200,000 next year in my business, suddenly that person may hear me fail when I don't do it. They're going to kind of quote unquote call me out. And that's how we can often look at it. So many people, they don't have any sort of accountability for their goals, and they have their self-accountability, and we fail easily at self-accountability, right? We all know that. So we don't get to where we want to get to, right? But this is what you add in when you're in a community of men, is you create accountability. You declare, hey, boys, this year I'm starting a new business. Yeah. And I'm going to get clients. I use this example because there's a man in my community, the Authentic Man community. He declared this year when he started, he's like, I'm doing this training course and I want help to make sure I stay on track of the training course. And I want to get some practice clients and I want to get some paid clients. And inside the community, he was held accountable every month because we have an accountability structure to do that. And then he to hit all those milestones through the year, finished the course, stayed on track, right? Some of the guys in the group are like, hey man, I'll be your, what's it called? I'll be your, the words just lost me. I'll be your practice client. I'd love to talk to you about some of my intimate life, right? And then he's now got paid clients. Another guy in the group, he just posted it today. He won't mind me using me example. He only joined 6 months ago, and he said, I want to make this much money in this much time. I want to go on some dates. I want to do these things. And he hit all his results. He hit all of them. All the things he was important to him, that he wanted to get over these 6 months of this year, he hit all of them, right? Because he had accountability every week. He was speaking to someone. Someone's like, hey man, how's that thing going? What's going on with that, right? Because this is what we need. We run away from it because it's painful and it can feel like we're failing and we're going to be rejected, because that's what we've often experienced before. We've experienced people when we've said we're going to do something, we don't do it. Someone berates us and shouts at us, mother, father, teacher, right? But accountability is also met with kindness and compassion. And this is something that, again, I'm really seeing in the men, this accountability structure that's really supporting them all through the year, right? Number 5, the 3, as you notice, the 3 powerful insights turned into 5. And this is the last one. And this one is the kind of, the one is hard to kind of touch, right? It's this emotional regulation, emotional literacy, and kind of identity work. When we're in groups of men and we are doing the work, right? We're expressing ourselves. We're talking about things. We're getting into things. Like, I'll give an example. Inside my community, I think it was a month and a half ago, we did one of our in-person meetups that happens every quarter. And we went down to Brighton. We did this stunning walk, really beautiful walk towards a viaduct and through some fields and all sorts. On the second half of the walk, I was like, guys, I've got a little theme for you. We're going to run through for the next 2 hours. We're going to talk about the father wound, right? The father wound is I got a podcast episode about it, but it's basically in the fact that all of us have been wounded in some way by our fathers in a way that they didn't show up for us in the way we wanted to. But we don't talk about this, right? Because we don't have places to talk about this that are, structured, are well held with people who can listen and understand. So on the walk, I gave him some questions, and every kind of 15 minutes, I gave him a new question, right? Around kind of the fathers. Where did our fathers not show up? How are our fathers amazing? What did we really need from our fathers we didn't get? Like, what would it look like to forgive our fathers? What relation do you want with your father now, if they're still around? How do you father yourself? These are just some examples, right? And we really got deep into like all these aspects. And it might sound like you're listening to this like, oh my God, why would I want to do that? That's going to be uncomfortable. That's the whole point of growth. You don't grow by sitting on your sofa, munching crisps and watching porn, right? You grow by getting to the gym, lifting heavy weights, feeling the tears in those interior little bits of the muscles. You grow by facing some of the difficult things, the shadow aspects of your life, the things you are maybe not ashamed of. Sorry, the things you're ashamed of, the aspects of your psyche you've never visited before. You grow by going on dates and putting yourself in difficult emotional situations, right? That's how you become a better dater, by dating more and reflecting. You become a better man in relationship by showing up in a relationship in ways you haven't before, taking accountability for things. This is how we grow as men. Men generally grow through pain, unfortunately. Not always, but often. But this is the sort of work that you do in a group of men, a well-held, well-facilitated group of men. And it allows you to be more emotionally kind of available, emotionally open, emotionally resilient as well, right? And also more emotionally attuned, because emotional attunement is a thing that we lack inside of relationships, especially if you're dating and you struggle to create the spark, or in your relationship you feel distant often from your partner, or the connection doesn't feel quite close. It's a lack of attunement. That's what you're lacking, right? And you're not practicing attunement. You're not attuning very well. And it's something we just constantly do in groups of men. And again, this is something that the men in the group constantly felt like they were really getting from the group. Is just like these highly well-attuned emotional men to reflect, and to be there, right? To bring kind of emotional content that they didn't have anywhere else in their life to bring. Yeah. To be witnessed and just being themselves without them needing to be fixed, right? Being able to show up just as they are. This is what's often lacking for us in life and men. So this is why these 5 aspects, these 5 things are so powerful for us when we are in groups of men. Because in essence, really, it gives us a new way of rewriting old scripts of masculinity, of self, of what it's like to be a man, or what other men are going to treat us like. And we take those into our lives. Because you saw I added onto the description is around confidence and relationships, right? And like I said, when we are more emotionally attuned, when we can feel safer in groups of men, safer in groups of people, we can express ourselves better. Our confidence starts to increase because we can be ourselves more. We can be more open and authentic as much as we want to be, right? But we also start to rewrite that masculine norm of what it means to be a man. So we come into our own sense of what that is, not through this man box, as I described before, telling us how we need to be. And this creates more joy and happiness and presence for us, right? And I talk to you about these things because these I'm literally seeing in front of me. What the men have said about the community to me in the sessions, on testimonial forms and so forth, how it's impacted their relational ability. They feel more present in their relationships. They feel more able to lead and give direction with their partners. They've started to see more of their blind spots, their kind of psychological blind spots that are there. They feel more open to partners, able to be in the storm of relationship, right? These are all things that literally men have said from being in the community. So this is what you get from being in a community. This is what you get from being in my community, right? Inside the Authentic Man community. And I'm happy to let you know that the community is open for new members from now, because we're getting to January now. And the closing date is going to be the 7th of February. So if you haven't got in by the 7th of February, you're going to have to wait another 6 months, right? And there's limited spaces. I say this and you can be like, oh, it's a marketing gimmick, David. Everyone says limited spaces, but it is because I can't take too many new people into community because it destabilizes the feeling in the group. So there's a very limited number of spaces for the men to come in. So if this is something interesting to you, and there's some caveats to this, you have to have done some work. Right? You need to be willing to, start to share, and you want to be open. You want to be better. Chances are you're listening to my podcast. So this kind of gels with you. We meet online twice a month. We meet once in person every quarter, as I said. It's usually a destination. It's going to be in and around the UK. People have flown in from Sweden. People have flown in from Ireland. And if this sounds like something you want to start your year off, so you want next year to be different for you. You want to move through the year different with a different level of confidence, different level of relational capacity and ability, then this is for you, right? But don't hang around and think, David, I'll wait another couple of weeks and I'll get in touch with David, 2 days before the 7th. Don't, because last time around, all the spaces were taken up well in advance, right? So if you're interested, down below is going to be an email address. You just pop me an email, go, David, I'm interested in the community. And we'll get on a call because everybody that joins the community has a personal call with me first, all right? Because I need to know that you're right. There's some people I've got on a call with them and they're not right, and that's okay. They want different things, right? It's not quite right for them. They don't have the ability to show up in the way that's needed for the group. But if this sounds like something you want to know more about, drop me a message and we can have a chat. Ciao, ciao.